Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's 3 o'clock. Chad here. We start with your Portland Trailblazers. They'll kick off their Summer League action Saturday. They'll meet the Spurs. Tip-off is at 6. You can check it on ESPN2. Of course, the first look at Donovan Clingan in a Trailblazer uniform. Elsewhere, Chris Paul, who signed a one-year deal with the Spurs, says that playing time trumped the desire to chase a ring. From college football, Arch Manning has changed course and has announced that he will be in the new EA Sports college football game, College Football 25. Mariners open the day 2 games up on Houston in the AL. They open up a series in San Diego tonight against the Padres. That first pitch at 6:40, Logan Gilbert will take the mound for Seattle. And the Dodgers have placed Tyler Glasnow back on the 15-day IL with back tightness. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad's coming at you next. Jason Ferman, Harefest, going to join us in studio at 4:20.
Time now for the 62 KGW mystery score. It's Chicago 44, Portland 41. Now, tomorrow, be listening to Scott Tom tomorrow morning on KGW at 7:50. When Scott calls for the mystery score, be the 8th caller. You'll be able to win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blazers home game. The 62 KGW mystery score, Chicago 44 and Portland 41. Tomorrow morning, Scott Tom at 7:50.
I don't know about you, Godfather, but I'm always a big fan of the Alan Parsons Project. Anytime you want to play that, very nice.
Yeah, we'll listen to that any day. Yes, sir.
And what I love about this song, Sirius, 2 things. One, I know that it's the lead into Eye in the Sky, which is a great song. Man, I would almost classify that as yacht rock. But also, of course, Sirius was the song that the Chicago Bulls, during the days of Michael Jordan, they would use that for the intro music at Chicago Stadium and the United Center.
Mm-hmm.
Legendary. And there's a transition.
It's most known for the Bulls, I think, than anything else.
Well, I've heard Alan talk about this before, that when they created it, they were just freestyling and, like usual, great musicians just kind of putting things together. And they had no intention or knowledge that somehow that would become some type of massive anthem that would be played in arenas across the country for decades.
Yeah. High schools are still playing it.
Played on NBA jam machines in every 7-Eleven.
Yeah. It's amazing. And that's how it happens so often with these great groups, Godfather. They make these songs that turn into something so much bigger than they could have possibly imagined. Like Queen, We Will Rock You.
Yeah.
I don't think they had any idea that was going to be played in NBA arenas and football stadiums across the country for decades.
No, I'll tell you, that kind of talent is so amazing that you can do stuff by accident that is so creative.
All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Jason Ferman is the gentleman who's putting on Harefest once again this year. It's going to be out in Canby coming up July 18th through the 20th. He's going to be in studio today at 4:20, so we'll talk about the lineup, what's going to be happening out in Canby, some of the best acts, some of the best dressed acts, and anytime you and I have a chance to talk music, I'm 100% in.
Well, it's funny, Chad, but tribute bands have always kind of fascinated me. They really have. Because when I was a kid, there was a bunch of really lousy ones around. And that whole thing has really elevated. Now, I mean, if you heard them, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference in many cases.
All right, one of my recent YouTube rabbit holes, and I'm not out of this hole yet. I'm still in it. But one thing I've enjoyed doing is taking songs that I love, and then I go through a little research process to find out which different acts have covered it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to go and listen to the different cover versions of the song that I like to pick and choose which acts I feel have done the best job of covering the song. And that kind of plays into Harefest because you have cover bands who perfect the music. And so I don't want to close myself off because some bands have done one heck of a job of putting their own spin on a song to where you're like, I really like that version. I like the way that sounds. I like what they've done with it. Sometimes I listen to it, I'm like, yeah, that's not my cup of tea. They alter it a little bit too much, or the tempo, they slow it down, it becomes a different song, and I don't like it. But I love doing that.
I get what you're saying, and I identify with it. The one thing I would say, when I'm hearing the original group do the song at a concert, don't mess with it. I want to hear it just the way I know the song. You know what I mean? Because you hear these guys, they get tired of playing the same songs all the time. So they kind of play with it a little bit, change it around a little, just, I think, so they don't get bored with it. But I'm funny that way. I want to hear it the way I know it's originally played.
Well, it's one of the toughest jobs as a big act or a musician because when you put on a concert, and I've heard many different artists talk about this, they're in Kansas City or Portland, Oregon, or Los Angeles or whatever city they're in. When they're going to a show or put on a show, they know that they've got people who are coming to see them for the very first time. They haven't been to a show. They haven't seen them live before. And so there are certain expectations that you have of an artist or a band when you go to see them in concert with the hits, right? You want to hear the hits. You want to see them perform the hits. And if you go and they put some type of different cute little arrangement on one of their big hits, it can be a bit annoying. It's like, hey, wait a second. That's not the way I heard the song. That's not the way it sounds on the album. And now you're giving me some different version. What's up with that?
Yeah, don't do that to me. Just don't do that to me. That's almost as bad as not playing many of your hits. Instead, just giving me every cut off your newest album. Sorry, I don't want that. I don't want you to do that to me. I came. I know what you've done. I want to hear the hits.
Well, it reminds me of a great story. Shacker, who is the gal that played Hannah Montana? What's her real name?
Miley Cyrus.
Yes.
And they play her song all the time at Oregon State football games.
All right. So Miley Cyrus. This is a story. I was listening to an interview with her, and I can't remember where. Maybe it was Howard Stern or something like that. But I thought this was very interesting. She had done a show, and it might have been in L.A. It was somewhere. And Paul Simon was at her concert. And Paul Simon, for those of you who don't know, is one of the biggest singer-songwriters of, his generation. And also a part of one of the biggest acts, Simon and Garfunkel. They've made a lot of good music.
Yes.
Well, Miley ran into Simon after the show, and he's a fan of her and her talent. So he was talking with her. And by the way, I think Paul Simon's married to Edie Brickell, who is also a musician.
A good one.
A good one, and very talented, and had a couple of big hits in the 80s. But anyways, Miley and Paul started talking, and Paul's like, I appreciate your act, and I enjoyed the show, but how come you decided not to play any of your hits? And she went into her long
justification
alibi
yeah.
and answer. And he's like, I would just suggest that you remember who your audience is. You've got people coming to see you for the first time. They want the hits, and you've got to deliver on that, or people are going to stop coming to your shows.
Yeah.
He was trying to be helpful to her from a guy who's been out playing shows and playing music and doing the entire business for decades, right? And he cares about her. So he's like, look, you need to play the hits just because that's what people expect from you when they come to a show.
Well, that's the great thing about seeing the Eagles. They don't disappoint you. They play their hits. Even though there's not enough time in a 3-hour concert to play every single hit that they've had.
Yes.
But you get their hits.
But I will say this. Miley's response as she continued to talk about this made a lot of sense in terms of why she got away from playing her hits. And what she said is that a lot of the songs that she writes in the moment, like it could be a relationship that's gone sideways or whatever she's feeling in the moment, well, she writes the song and she puts it together, but then 6 months, 8 months, a year down the road, she doesn't feel those same emotions and feelings for the song that she had at the time that she wrote it. She's in a different spot in her life. And so therefore, she doesn't connect with the song the way that she used to, and that's why she wants to play different material. And as an artist, I can understand where she's coming from because she's like, I want to be authentic and real when I'm up on stage performing that song because those words that I put together mean so much to my heart and what I meant at the time. And she goes, if I'm in a different place and I'm not feeling that, she goes, I have a hard time getting up on stage. I'm not going to fake anything. And I thought, very interesting to hear that type of description. I get it. But you still better play the hits because that's why people are coming. But as an
Fake
artist,
it.
I understand exactly what she's talking
Yeah,
about.
I do too, but still. People are paying good money to see you. You got to do what you got to do.
No. And I know that a lot of artists fight against the fact that, hey, you have 5 or 6 songs, or sometimes you have one song that went mainstream. But that's how people know you. It's a double-edged sword, right? These bands want to hit it and make money so they can make more music. But then when they hit it, they get criticized by some of the douchebags who are like, oh, you're a sellout. It's like, no, we just made music and it caught on. What do you want us to do?
I have to tell you, I went to the Blues Festival several years ago and was able to get a backstage pass from one of my buddies. And I only went because Long John Baldry was there, who was one of my all-time favorites. He's passed away a few years ago. But
Is he related to Long John Silver?
no,
Okay.
but listen to some of his bluesy stuff. It's really good. But he has this song. It's very iconic. Don't lay no boogie woogie on the king of rock and roll. If you ever get a chance to hear it, it's a spectacular song. It's fairly long too. And I went there to hear him do that song. He's got other songs I like, but I was there to hear that song. I keep waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. He never does it. And finally, people in the audience are starting to yell, "Hey, play Boogie Woogie!" He says, I can't play it. He said, I told him I needed a grand piano for that because he does play the piano too. So I told him I needed a grand piano for that, and I didn't get it, so I don't play it. I was like, you really need a grand piano for that? I mean, just a regular piano, even an electronic piano, those are laying all over the place.
Amazing.
You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. He was jacking you. That's not cool.
No, it's not cool at all.
I went with my boy Steve. This is back in 2001. We're down in Thousand Oaks, California, where his mom lived. And Toto was putting on a show at some dinner theater right by where his mom lives. So we're hitting that show. I'm like, I'm in. And the dinner theater was amazing. So we rolled down to this. It was almost like a strip mall where this dinner theater was at. And we get out of our car because we're going to go get something to eat in the same vicinity. And we walk by the dinner theater and we hear music being played, right? So we roll up on the place and Toto's in there. No one else is around. David Page, who's part of the group, the keyboardist and great songwriter, he comes strolling in his SUV and he runs by us. So we walk in and we watch them do they're just warming up, tuning up, doing their set list. And it was pretty cool to see the pre-show workout and see what those guys can do. But once the dinner theater opened up and we got our spot, this is only a place that holds like 300-400 people. It's very intimate, right? I'd never been to a show with an act of that magnitude in such a small venue. So we're up there right by the stage, and Lukather's up there doing his thing and going through their songs, and there's this guy who had probably had a few too many to drink in the back of the dinner theater. He's like, hold the line! Hold the line after every song. And finally, Lukather just smiled. He looked up. He said, hey, buddy, you know we're going to do it. We're going to get there, man. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy because you know it's coming. And sure enough, they delivered a little bit later in the show. Mm-hmm. But that's all the guy was there for was hold the line. Yeah. It's incredible. All right, we'll come back. We want to get into Cooper Flagg. Your main focus as a Trailblazer fan right now should be about one name and one name only.
Every day is Flag Day.
It is. Yep. And it's high noon on my flagpole for Cooper Flagg. That's what I got to say about that. We need Cooper Flagg in Portland. We're going to talk about Cooper and also the absurd hours that we donate to certain things that we're never going to get back in our life. It's very sad. I'll explain my situation too. That's Dwight. I'm Chad. Michael Shacker's here. You got the Rip City Drive. Yeah, speaking of hits at concerts, I don't remember the year, but I was out at the Clark County Fairgrounds one night for Hall & Oates. They were out there doing a show, and they did not play Private Eyes. They went through a lot of songs and did not play Private Eyes, and I ran into the principal, Curtis Long, and he looked at me, he goes, Hall & Oates, no Private Eyes. What's up with that? He couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That's the problem when you got too many hits. Sometimes you skip over a few.
Well, was it a typical Hall & Oates concert, 12 songs and get out of there?
No, this was a more complete show,
Okay.
unlike the one that we saw up at Maryhill Winery where we drove up there for like 3 hours. I get up there, I'm like, wait, what, 12 songs? I was ticked off.
It was less than an hour.
I had a ban of Hall & Oates songs on my show for a while after that because I'm like, look, man, you're screwing me, bro.
Yeah, and they had an opening act he just sat on a stool playing guitar for like forever.
No, it's pathetic.
Yeah.
I have certain expectations for certain acts, and if I go to your show and you try to screw me with a little 45-minute set list or 90 minutes, anything below 90 minutes is really annoying. 90 minutes to me is still unacceptable. I expect roughly a 2-hour show for a
Yeah.
big-time act. I went and
Yeah.
saw, who was it, the Moody Blues at the Keller Auditorium. They went up there. They got a catalog a mile deep, and they like played for like an hour and, 30 minutes roughly. Yeah, I'm like, come on, man.
No, you get a discount. If you're going to go to a concert like that, it ought to be half price.
Yeah, Chicago's done that to me a couple of times where they come out with some dumb medley. Like
Oh,
if you come
yeah.
out with a medley and give me
Yeah.
a portion of every song, it's like, get out of here with the
No,
nonsense.
I want no medleys. Come on, play the songs.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It
Here's
is.
our 15 hits in about 3 minutes. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. And then one time, this is like 96, I'm driving. I don't know what I was doing in Portland, but I was driving back to the Couve. And back then it was like anything up to 230, and you could drive back up I-5 to get to the Couve with no problem. But after
Yeah.
230, you were subject to traffic issues.
I remember
So,
the days.
I made sure that I was on the road by 2 o'clock, and I picked up some radio station up in Centralia, like Mix something or another. And they said, oh, yeah, coming to the Clark County Fairgrounds tonight is America. And I'm like, wait, what? So I get home, and this is before cell phones. So I call the radio station. I'm like, did you say America's coming to the Clark County Fairgrounds? Like, yeah, tonight. How much are tickets? And they're like, you just need fair admission. So I hit up my buddy Corey, and I'm like, dude, America at the Clark County Fairgrounds, let's hit it. So we roll down there, pay $6 admission, and we get like a 2-hour show. And I was,
had the right to buy a couple of elephant ears on the way in.
yeah.
probably.
So right away, I'm like, I love you guys. And so I went to go see him, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago down in, what is that town in Vegas that's right by the Arizona border? Laughlin, Nevada.
Mhm.
It's kind of an old school Vegas town. I like it down there. It's kind of cool. So I went down there, and they played at one of the venues down there, and same act, but played 2 hours strong and all their hits. And they come out and let you know ahead of time, like, yeah, if you got the greatest hits album, this is pretty much going to be the show. And they play all their hits.
Oh,
really
perfect.
good.
Yeah.
They don't jack you around. And they weren't up there trying to, charge top dollar for some type of hour and 15-minute set list either. Don't do it.
Yeah. And don't play your new stuff because it's probably not very good. The old stuff's what I fell in love with. Come on.
Speaking of not very good, today I had a meeting that I had to be a part
Oh,
of.
yeah. I know. I was here waiting.
Over 3 hours.
Oh, God.
And
Nothing's that important.
and it was just part of me on the inside died today because as I got up in the morning, my body's conditioned to get up early to hit the golf course, right?
Yeah,
That's just how I'm
yeah.
programmed right now.
Yeah. And you had a tea time, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to scratch myself out, and I
That
know
hurts.
2 other guys that were playing in memory of me, and it's very sad. But as I was driving down I-5 southbound into town, like my car naturally wanted to veer into the Expo exit so I could get over to the golf course. But no, none of that today. On a day where you look outside the window, you walk outside, you're like, I just know what the fairways are going to be like. I know what the greens are going to be like. I know what it's going to feel like and smell like, the sounds, everything. And no, just a 3-hour meeting to take up your day. And meetings, and we all know this, right? Most of them, or all of them, it's time that you're never going to get back in your life. You just donate that time in your life,
Mhm.
and you're never getting it back. And I feel like as human beings in the workforce, we are getting the shaft on the meetings.
Oh, yeah.
If you compare the amount of time spent compared to the productivity in the meetings, like, what's up with that? Why'd I just do that? It was tough, man. It was rough. I know you feel my pain, but it was rough.
I do.
Because you wake up every morning and look out at the golf course and you see nothing but sunshine right now with beautiful trees and the birds chirping and
Green grass with the sprinklers on, and you could see them out working on the course, and it's like, oh, man.
I've noticed in the morning too, like the bunnies, the birds, the squirrels, they're all
bunnies.
happy. They're all happy. They're in a better mood.
They're whistling.
I should have been out there with them.
Dancing around, yeah.
If you listen to the birds song in the morning, it's a happier
know.
tune. They sing a happier tune.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That was my story this morning. And now I'm here with you. So that's pretty much how my day's gone.
Yeah, this is one day where I'm better than what you did this morning. I can tell you that.
All right. We got to talk Cooper Flagg, Godfather.
Yeah.
We're going to hear from Cooper Flagg in just a moment on some of his favorites, where he was asked to comment on his favorite team, best basketball player, men and women, and this and that, best defender. We'll hear from that in just a moment. But his play is exceptional at 17 years old. And I want to ask you about his play and, I mean, really what we saw yesterday, going up against top-notch NBA competition and the ease at which he was able to make things happen with his offense. Pull-up jumper, catch and shoot three, showed a little post-up. And after his performance, he wasn't, like, overwhelmed or that excited about it. It was almost like he expected it, like guys with real talent do. It reminds me of Larry Bird when he was asked about, playing and getting into college and so forth. And he's like, hey, I would play on the playground against good dudes. And he goes, once I started to grow, the game just came easy for me, where I was making moves that other guys just couldn't make. And that's what I see in Cooper Flagg, just a guy where the game comes easy for him. And when he's out there on the floor, he's producing.
I had a chance to talk to Ben Gulliver last night, Chad, and he's going to come on later in the week. Going to come on Thursday, I think, and talk about the Wednesday night USA game against Canada. But I asked him specifically about Cooper, and he basically raved about him. And he told me, he said, the interesting thing is he plays really hard, especially defensively. He was going down the floor and defending Drew Holiday, who was bringing the ball up. Cooper Flagg's 6'9", and he's down the floor keeping Drew Holiday in front of him all the way up the floor. And he said afterwards, it was like this kid wasn't all juiced up and electric about how he did against these players.
Pounding his chest. Look at me.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was more or less just matter of fact. Yeah, I was just out there playing basketball, playing hard like I do, and everybody was so impressed. The USA players on the Olympic team were totally impressed. And I think if you get on the internet, you'll see their quotes all over the place. But these guys were very impressed by him. He's 17 years old. He shouldn't even be going to college this year. He should be going into his senior year of high school. But he reclassified a year to just kind of set the clock ahead a year. And he's going to be a freshman at Duke. You're going to get to see him. We've mentioned this. But, folks, that's the Trailblazers' future, and it ain't going to be easy to get him. But you're going to have to give yourself every chance in the world to get him because he's that kind of player. Season tickets. I mean, they're going to have no trouble selling season tickets if he's on that roster.
No, it'd be amazing. Now, the difficult part with the lottery is with the changes that have been made, the three teams with the worst records at the end of the season have an equal shot. 14% chance at getting the number one pick.
Having the worst overall record does you no good compared to the other two right next to you.
Yes. So the objective should be very simple. Make sure you're in the bottom three.
Yeah.
And it doesn't guarantee anything, but at least you're giving yourself the best possible chance to jump up to number one and draft a true difference maker.
And I don't care what you have to do. If you get another pick that looks like it just might be in the lottery, you better go do it. You better increase your chances. He's that good.
Yes, because if you have another pick that could be in the lottery, if you don't get it with your 14% chance, maybe you get it with a 6% chance or whatever the percentages may be. You want as want as much ammunition as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. You're throwing darts at a board. You got a lot better chance if you can throw two than if you can throw one.
All right. Well, I'll ask you about his background, but I like where he grew up and what he was influenced by for a specific reason. But here's Cooper just being asked a series of questions. Take a listen.
Best NBA player of all time.
Michael Jordan, he's the GOAT.
Best WNBA player of all time.
Super
Best basketball team of all time.
85, 86 Celtics.
Best defender of all time.
Kawhi Leonard.
Best coach of all time.
Greg Popovich.
Best Jordan basketball sneaker of all time.
Jordan 4 is the Pine Grace.
What's your pregame hype song?
Fanita.
What's your name and where are you going to school?
Cooper Flagg, and I go to Montverde Academy or Duke.
There you go. Okay. 85, 86 Celtics. Very interesting to me. That, of course, is the team that Larry Bird said he would put up against anyone.
Mm-hmm.
They won the championship. They lost one game at home. He grew up where?
Little town outside. I think it's about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Portland, Maine. They're not churning out a lot of NBA players up in Maine.
No. What's the Celtic influence in Maine?
Well, here's an interesting story. First of all, they don't have pro sports in Maine, so everything's Boston up there. Boston, they're following the Patriots and the Celtics and the Red Sox. Well, Cooper got himself on a travel team when he was about 7th grade. He and his twin brother, people don't know a lot that he has a twin brother, but they had to practice in Portland. So to and from practice was like an hour, 20 minutes, and his dad had a van. He and his brother would go into the back of the van. They had carpeting down or a blanket or something. They'd lay there, and they had a TV monitor, and they kept slapping in that DVD of that Celtic team, and they watched it over and over and over. And he's like an expert on the Celtics. He knows all about the Celtics and basketball history in general. He's a historian, which is very unusual for modern young players. But he also, as my understanding, he got to play with a lot of Boston players in the summertime. He'd go down to Boston and hang out and get into their scrimmages.
Now, he's too young to have been around for the Larry Bird era in Boston.
But it's his favorite player.
But I can't help but wonder, when he mentions the 85, 86 Celtics, I wonder how much video he's gone back and watched and how much influence Bird and the way he played has had on his game currently. That excites me because I need one more shot at having another Larry Bird type in my life because that's my favorite player of all time.
Well, that's the video. That's the DVD he was watching, was that team, 85, 86 Celtics. And there's no question when you watch him play, you see Larry Bird.
Right.
The versatility, the ability to go anywhere on the floor and hit a shot, and also the passing ability, all those things he does. And he's 6'9".
Yeah.
I mean, and he's probably not even done growing yet. He finally left Maine. He was recruited to go down along with his brother to Montverde in Florida, which is kind of one of those basketball factories for high school kids. They recruit all over the country, and his family moved down there with him, and so he's played against the best young players in the country. He was on the under-17 team that won the gold medal, and he was young on that team, but he was still the best player on it. His credentials are impeccable. They really are.
I really think it's a no-brainer here for the Trailblazers. You have to embrace one more year of the tank mission. Embrace it. Embrace it in a way like never before to make sure that you wind up with the best percentage chance to have a shot at Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, Chad, and this is just me, they're not going to be in the playoffs anyway. They're going to be somewhere in the lottery. If you're going to be somewhere in the lottery, get the best chance of getting the number one pick. Go all the way down to one of the bottom three teams. That's what you have to do. If you're going to lose games anyway, why not lose the most games? Yeah.
Who did Ben Golliver compare Cooper Flagg to in terms of his impact at this age?
He said, and Ben has seen, he's been going to these Nike Hoop Summits and all those things for years. And he's seen these kids coming out of high school. And he said the only high school player he can recall having the kind of impact that Cooper's going to have is LeBron. And LeBron obviously was physically way ahead of most kids coming out of high school. That was his big advantage.
Strong.
Because at that time, his finesse and all that weren't, he didn't have the skill level that he had now, But he said better coming out of high school than Kevin Durant, better than anybody else he could think of, but he's that good. I mean, I don't know what he's got to do. And again, he's coming out of hye school a year early. The guy's 17 years old, out there on the floor with 34-year-old guys twice his age, playing right up belly to belly with him, not intimidated, going at him.
And he's an American-born white guy.
Yeah.
The comparisons for him, Larry Bird is the obvious comp.
You
Whether he
talk
wants it or
about
not.
unicorn. Holy cow. That's a unicorn. American-born white guy who can play?
When was the last time an American-born white dude was taken number 1 overall? There's a question for you.
That is a question.
Where was Kevin Love taken? Was he number 1?
I don't think so. No, I don't think
I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to do a little crack research here
Yeah,
during the
why
break.
don't you get that little computer of yours out and see what we can do with that?
I told you.
That might be something for the Google machine. You might have to do that.
The resurgence of the American-born white
K-Love
player.
was 3rd overall. Is that right, Mike?
Who went first in that draft? Sorry, I'm not trying to put you in a tough spot there, Shacker. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. You just got to embrace it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Blazers they chose their path, and they've had to go through a lot to get to where they're at. You do not want to pull out too quick. Yeah. Okay.
Mike, if you've got that page out, do you have all the number 1 picks? Or what do you got? You could look for the last American-born white kid.
I'll get that during the break.
Perfect. Might have to go back a ways. We're forgetting somebody, though.
I don't think we're forgetting anyone. There's not.
What
The
about
list is not
Bryant
long.
Big Country Reeves?
What a bum.
Hey, come on. He's one of your guys, right? Oklahoma State? Wasn't he?
That's my dad's guy.
Okay. He's Oklahoma.
No, he's Oklahoma State. That's
Well,
not
I
the
know,
same.
but-
Yeah, just because you're a Cowboy doesn't mean
Okay.
I claim you.
All right.
I would claim Mookie Blaylock, Stacey King,
Yeah.
pretty much anyone from the 88 team that got punked by Kansas in the title game. That was very disheartening.
Yeah.
I watched that game the other night, too. Danny Manning was unbelievable in the title game.
Oh, man. Was he ever?
Larry Brown, of course, coaching his butt off like usual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. We'll come back, and some players may not truly understand their real value on the open market. We'll explain that. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, Dwight, I've got the details for you.
On what?
Last American-born white guy drafted in the NBA.
I probably should have guessed it too. How long ago was it, first of all?
I was 2 years old.
Oh, my gosh, really?
1977. I'm going to tell you the name. You can tell me if you remember him. He went to Indiana. He was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks. Kent Benson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was a center, 6'11" center. That's the guy who, now my memories, he either punched out Kareem or Kareem punched out him. I think maybe Kareem punched him out but broke his hand doing it or something like that. He had a big fight with Kareem.
Very interesting.
Kent Benson.
Okay.
Yeah, played
After
for Bob
graduating
Knight.
from Indiana in 77, Benson was the number 1 overall pick of the 77 draft by the Bucks. 2 minutes into his very first game as a professional, Benson elbowed Los Angeles Lakers center Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the abdomen, and Abdul-Jabbar gave Benson a concussion with a retaliatory punch.
Yeah.
Jabbar broke his hand in the incident and was out for 2 months. Otherwise, he could have been potentially suspended by the NBA. Meanwhile, Benson missed only 1 contest and was back in action 4 days later against Chicago, playing 24 minutes. On April 6th of 79, Benson scored a career-high 28 points, grabbed 10 boards, and recorded 5 assists and 3 blocks, and stole the ball 3 times while helping the Bucks to a 140-131 victory over the Utah Jazz.
He was not a bad player. He was not. He wasn't a bad player.
But you still have to.
I'm
say,
proud of myself for remembering that fight.
I'm amazed. Your mind does amaze me sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't function at all.
But this further helps my case.
Oh, for sure.
77. That is a long time.
That's not long after Bill Walton, for crying out loud.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that if you look at the list, Benson in 77, and if you go back a few years to 74, Bill Walton, and before him, Doug Collins. So you had back-to-back years in 73 and 74 where Doug Collins and Bill Walton, number 1 overall picks, both American-born white dudes. That's crazy.
It really is. Wow.
And even Larry Bird, the great Larry Bird, taken number 6 overall, but you said that's because he came out a year early.
He didn't come out. You had the option of drafting him, or he could go back to school.
Yeah.
And
And
because
that
of
goes
his
back to our
transfer.
original story with the Trailblazers and why they were like, well, we're not really sure we want to take Bird.
Yeah, they wanted a center at that time, so they took Michael Thompson, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
They could have drafted Bird, but at that time, he was still, this is before his rivalry with Magic Johnson and the championship game and all that stuff. So he wasn't quite Larry Bird yet. I give him that. But they still, and Larry had told everyone, don't draft me because I'm only going to Boston, and if you draft me, I'm sitting out. I'm not going to play.
So basically, Red Auerbach knew what Bird was going to become, and no one else did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Red was so far ahead of his time, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's the reason they won all the time. It's the reason Wilt couldn't beat them, because they always had better players. They always played better.
That's annoying.
Yeah, it's annoying. And the guy also smoked a victory cigar on the bench, too, whenever he got ahead of you.
Which I love, too. But, man, 1977 was the last time an American-born white guy was taken number 1 overall in the draft. And now next year, Cooper Flagg will become the next. He's going to go number 1, right? Like, no-brainer.
Here's a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Given the times and all, will that even be mentioned when he's drafted?
Yes.
You think?
Of course.
American-born white guy.
Yeah. And it's the same discussion that was around Chet Holmgren. There were people saying that, there were stories done on that where GMs were privately saying, like, I don't really think I could go number 1 on an American-born white guy.
Well, you couldn't have. I know that. You didn't like Chet.
No, I thought he was garbage. And I really did. And I thought, there's no way a white dude that's that big is going to have the foot speed to be able to do what he does. But he has surprised me with his play. Most importantly, his foot speed, because he's shown the ability to protect the rim, but also get out and cover space and contest at the three-point line. Didn't think that was even humanly possible for him. But it is, and therefore he's changing the narrative.
Well, he's another guy that came up in the AAU system where everybody's shooting threes. So you get a guy that can shoot a three, and he's 7 foot tall.
Dude, I'm telling you, if I had a young son who was going to be a big in college hoop or the NBA, shoot threes, learn how to defend the pick and roll, cover space, move, and shoot the three. And if you do that, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and be a rim protector.
But the whole idea of the Pete Newell big man camp, that's a thing of the past now.
Yeah, they're not working on those drop steps anymore, those step throughs and all that stuff.
I mean, how useless would a guy like Kevin McHale be in today's game? Hey, let's kick it down to the black hole, have him put on a bunch of sweet moves with his footwork, and give a little 2-foot hook shot with the one hand. It doesn't work like it used to because teams, they want the threes or they want guys driving at the rim to score or get fouled. Analytics, baby.
Well, that's why you don't have bigs who can do those moves anymore. You hardly ever see, well, Edey's a guy that's got low post moves.
Yeah.
Let's see how often he gets to use them.
My guess would be not very often, right?
Yeah.
All right, one other quick story. Former Trailblazer, the Toronto Raptors are expected to move on from Gary Trent Jr. after he declined their offer and sought $25 million annually from the team. Quote, per a source, the Raptors were willing to bring the sharpshooter back at an annual salary of around $15 million when the negotiation window opened last month, but Trent's camp was looking for a raise on the $18.5 million he made last season, something in the $25 million range.
That sounds like another second apron casualty in a way. If they're cutting him, he's really too young to take a salary cut, I think.
Yeah.
I to take him from 18 down to 15 is not fair. But again, probably just first offer, which is what they do. And it's like any other negotiation. It's like you're buying a house. You're going to lowball them and then eventually come to an agreement. I would think he can get 20, but who knows? I think at 25, he's overvaluing himself.
Yeah, because his skill set, like he's a good shooter, but what else does he do aside from that?
Well, you know, he defended pretty well as a rookie, and I think it's kind of gone downhill ever since, which a lot of guys, you know.
Yeah, he wouldn't be the first.
Well, see, and what got him into the lineup as a rookie? It was his ability to defend. That's what got him there. But as soon as his shooting came along well enough to get in the lineup that way, it's like, I don't have to guard guys anymore.
And you know how it works in the NBA? You don't get paid $20+ million a year to be a defender. You get paid $20+ million to be a three-point maker.
Right.
And that's another reason why a lot of the guys tailor their game a certain way. It's like, wait, what's going to get me paid?
Hey, I don't blame them for that.
No, I understand. All right, when we come back, I really have a problem with athletes that whine and complain, especially for no reason at all.
Yeah, especially really rich ones. Yeah.
Like there are certain athletes that I try to like, and then they give me more reasons to continue to hate on them. This next guy would be a prime example. We'll get to that next on the Rip City Drive. All right, 4 o'clock chat here. What's up, my friends? Hope you're enjoying this sunny Tuesday afternoon. Trailblazers will kick off their Summer League action Saturday. They'll meet the Spurs down at the Thomas and Mack Arena in Vegas. Tip-off at 6 on ESPN2. Elsewhere, Chris Paul signed a one-year deal with the Spurs, says playing time trumped the desire to chase a ring. From college football, Arch Manning has changed course and announced he will be in the new EA Sports college football game, College Football 25. Mariners open the day 2 games up on the Astros in the AL West. They open up a series tonight in San Diego against the Padres. That first pitch at 6:40, Logan Gilbert is going to be on the bump for Seattle. And the Dodgers have placed Tyler Glasnow back on the 15-day IL with back tightness. We're going to be joined in studio today by Jason Ferman, who's putting on Harefest out in Canby, July 18th through the 20th. He's coming up at 4:20. And we got a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops at 5. You know, Godfather, the Chris Paul story kind of goes back to what we were talking about the other day where, you know, players, depending on where they're at in their career and so forth, different priorities for what they want to do and where they decide to play. Sometimes winning is the number one priority. Sometimes it's money.
Yeah.
But in this case for Paul, he wanted to be in a position to play basketball. And he knew that if he went to the Spurs, based on the conversations that they had, that he would get more playing time there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they'd like somebody who could kind of teach Wemby where to be, you know, how to handle the pick and roll as the roller.
Yes.
And a guy who's going to get him the ball.
Yeah, and Chris Paul is one of the best pick and roll point guards that we've seen in the NBA in quite some time. And just look at the work he did early in Ayton's career and the success that they had running the pick and roll. I like Chris Paul. The only question mark I have about Paul is his inability to stay healthy, which has been an issue throughout his entire career.
Yeah.
But outside of that, he's a darn good basketball player.
Yeah, he's one of the great point guards of all time.
No question. There might be some officials in the NBA that don't like CP3.
Yeah, well, there's a few officials he doesn't like too, so works out well.
I love that. He and Scott Foster do not exactly love each other. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, there's reason. He can't seem to win a game that Scott Foster's doing.
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Some of these officials, man, they hold we talk about all the time. They're human, right? And they hold grudges. So if you're constantly whining like Luka, they're not going to forget.
Oh, Chad, it's just a coincidence, I'm sure. All those losses with that guy refereeing, just a coincidence.
All right, let's talk about little tennis here for the wrong reasons, I might add. But like I love tennis, and I've been watching tennis ever since I was a young boy. Andre Agassi, John McEnroe, and Rafi, my 3 favorites.
Nadal, yeah.
Nadal is freaking awesome. I just love him. And those 3 guys, like Andre Agassi, I was in love with and followed him throughout his career, and I would make time. This is how I know I love a tennis player. If I make time to sit down and watch a big match at the U.S. Open, Wimbledon, the Australian Open, one of the big majors, then and Agassi was one of those guys. Rafi was one of those guys, and McEnroe was his serve and volley game. I just haven't seen anyone like him. His ability to go up to the net and with the eye-hand coordination, the reflex, it's amazing. Now, there's also another group of tennis players that I love to hate on, guys who I'm not a fan of. Like Pete Sampras drove me crazy because...
Really? Pete Sampras?
Yeah, no, you wouldn't think so.
He's
but
kind of a harmless guy.
He just mowed down all the guys that I liked. That was my problem with him. He was too good.
Isn't it funny how he was just invincible for a short period of time? Nobody could touch him.
White hot. And at Wimbledon, nearly unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
His serve was unreal. He was just annoyingly good, and he took out the guys that I loved. He destroyed McEnroe in the U.S. Open one year when Mac, late in his career, made a run. Did the same thing to Jimmy Connors. He was a problem. Andre Agassi had problems with him. He was just a great player. Not that there was anything about him because he had no personality.
Oh, he was very bland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the most boring, great athletes of all time.
Yeah.
Roger Federer, I've never been a fan of, and Novak Djokovic would rank right up there near the top of tennis players that I have never liked and root against. And I hate the fact that he's got more majors than anyone because he's so darn good. But this would be a prime example of a guy who doesn't get it, who back in his douchey days, Bryson DeChambeau, when he didn't get it, but now he gets it, but he didn't get it before.
Yeah.
You want to set this up?
Yeah, I should, because Joker was playing against Rune, and the fans like him. He's younger. He's like kind of
Rune.
Yeah, Rune.
Is that French?
No, it's I don't know. It's like Serbian or something. I
Kind of
think.
reminds me of who are those two coaches in baseball? Rene and Marcel.
Rene and Marcel Lachman. Yes. No, and I love that you know those guys, by the way. But anyway, so the fans were getting into him, and it's kind of like, remember Lou Piniella when he played, and the fans he would come to the plate, and the fans would all go Lou,
Yeah.
and the announcer would always feel compelled to say they're not booing him, they're just saying Lou. Well, for Rune, they were going Roo, and I don't know that Djokovic understood all that.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of players like that in the past. Michael Cooper.
Sure. Yeah, it's common.
Yeah, that's how fans embrace their players.
Luke in Portland, Maurice Lucas. Luke.
I love that. Well, take a listen to a Joker right after the match, too. It's so bad that you almost feel like it can't be real, but it was real.
Yeah.
Here it is.
To all those people that have chosen to disrespect the player, in this case me, have a good night. Good night, good night. Very good night.
I'm hoping that they were just commenting on Rune and that they weren't disrespecting you.
They were. I don't accept it. No. I know they were cheering for Rune, but that's an excuse to also boo. Listen, I've been on the tour for more than 20 years, so trust me, I know all the tricks. I know how it works. It's fine, it's okay. I focus on the respectful people that have respect, that pay the ticket to come and watch tonight, and love tennis, and appreciate the players and the effort that the players put in here. I played in much more hostile environment, trust me. You guys can't touch me.
First of all, he's the first guy to ever call Wimbledon a hostile environment. Come on. They're eating strawberries and cream. Come on.
This is no different than Kevin Durant being upset because someone's on him at a game at Moda Center, pointing out the fan, having him removed from the arena.
Yeah.
That's the example here. This is some of the softest stuff. And you know how these tennis players work, especially guys like Joker? They're mega rich, and they walk around in this bubble at all times with people just kissing their ass. And that's exactly what's going on here. This guy doesn't get it.
No. Huge entourage. He's got somebody to take care of his every whim. I'm sorry. I've never liked him. And he's had a resurgence, really, of being a fan favorite kind of now in his old age.
Do you think he's joking? Was he joking?
No, he wasn't. I
want to believe he's joking because that's painful to listen to.
By the way, Rune's from Denmark. Carrie Eggers texted me. Thanks for
Carrie.
listening, Carrie. Appreciate it. Yeah, he's from Denmark. But anyway, no, he was serious. He was upset about it. And the announcer tried to reason with him and say, no, they're just, they're rooting for Rune. And no. I've been around a long time. I know what they're doing. Come on.
To all those people that have chosen to disrespect the player, in this case me, have a good night. Good night.
He thinks that's funny.
Good night. Very good night.
I'm hoping that they were just commenting on Rune and that they weren't disrespecting you.
They were. I don't accept it. No. I know they were cheering for Rune, but that's an excuse to also boo. Listen, I've been on the tour for more than 20 years, so trust me, I know all the tricks. I know how it works. It's fine, it's okay. I focus on the respectful people that have respect, that pay the ticket to come and watch tonight, and love tennis, and appreciate the players and the effort that the players put in here. I played in much more hostile environment, trust me. You guys can't touch me.
Please shut up, Joker.
Yeah, just shut up. You won the match. Leave.
What's really annoying is that he has 24 Grand Slam titles.
Yeah.
24. Nadal's got 22. Like, no one's ever going to hit that number. 24.
Yeah.
do you have to be that soft? Like, that's pretty pathetic, Godfather.
No. For sure it is. Yeah, and he's wrong. You know, I mean, that's the other side of this
Yeah.
whole thing.
He's not right.
He wasn't even getting booed. He has no idea what it's like. Go play baseball, basketball, or football and find out what it's like to be booed, okay?
Yeah, that's really sad. But I would expect nothing less from Djokovic.
You've watched a million tennis tournaments.
Yeah.
So have I. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody booed lustily at a tennis tournament. It's like booing a PGA golfer. Nobody does that, right?
No, but it'd be great if they did.
Oh, it would do wonders, I think, for the sport. Yeah.
I could think of a few golfers where if they were to step up in the tee box and you just started raining
Well,
down the booze.
And if you could cheer or boo while they're actually playing, it would be more fun, too.
No, it'd be amazing.
They expect to hit a 99-mile-an-hour fastball with everybody screaming in their ear. But, oh, gosh, when a guy's hitting a tennis ball or a golf ball, you can't say anything. Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
Well, that's usually what they do. Like the U.S. Open is usually the most boisterous. I mean, you were there, but even right before they serve,
Oh, you can hear a pin drop.
yeah.
And that's a New York crowd. A little more hostile than Wimbledon, I can tell you.
And Wimbledon is like the most friendly crowd of all.
Yeah.
Yeah, French. We know the French isn't the nicest crowd. But how would you rank them in terms of for the majors? Wimbledon would be number one for friendliest, right?
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
Followed by
Probably
the
the
Australian Open.
Australian Open. Yeah.
Followed by where do we put third?
France comes third, and then the U.S. Open, I think.
New York.
Yeah, because, I mean, come on, it's New Yorkers.
Well, that's what I like about the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
More lively atmosphere.
One of the most fun sporting events I was ever at in my life.
They
Really fun.
We might start getting boos when guys hit the tee box at the Waste Management Open
Yeah.
because it was getting a little bit out of control this time around.
That's the one golf tournament where people feel the need to just yell and scream whenever they
Well, they
want.
get hammered.
Yeah.
They had to close off alcohol sales because it became too unruly at a golf tournament.
Yeah. Well, that's the 16th hole. Where
Guys
it's
lying
just
down
crazy.
on the cart path, vomiting, lying in their own vomit. It was bad. But Joker, it's like this is the kind of stuff. It's like, okay, Joker, this is why I don't like you, and this is why I will actively root against you, and I hope you never win another major.
Mm-hmm.
I can't take that. I mean, that's how good he is. Pete Sampras had 14. He's 10 behind Joker. 10.
But if you went to a tennis tournament and tried to boo him, they'd kick you out. They wouldn't allow you to do that.
Would they
If
kick
you
you
were
out?
actually booing him, they'd probably kick you out.
Why is it acceptable to boo at some sporting events and not at tennis?
I can't answer that. I know at golf they raised those big paddles in golf that say "Quiet, please."
Yeah. I got your paddle right here.
Yeah.
I want to go to we should go to the U.S. Open together, and then we together can boo the Joker.
It'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Boo!
And I'm not saying rude. I'm saying boo.
Whatever, man. That guy's what a joke. The Joker's a joke.
The
Just
Joker's a clown.
Close your pie hole, please. All right, when we come back, we'll talk Harefest. Jason Ferman is going to be in studio. Always nice to talk music. That's Dwight. I'm Chad. You got the Rip City Drive. Hey, Godfather, before we get to Jason Feldman, quick note that came into my phone from the 503.
Yeah.
Hey, good story for you. Coach Ruick from OSU, a good family friend, his son Cole is in his first PGA tournament at the Scottish Open. Scott is going to caddy for him. He qualified by winning the Mountain West as a sophomore. Cool local story. He's an awesome young man.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? Being on the bag for your son who's in the Scottish Open?
That course over there. I hope he's ready to have a good long walk up and down hills and everything else.
All right. Harefest, the mother of all tribute festivals, is coming out to Canby, Oregon, Godfather's neck of the woods, July 18th through the 20th. You can get tickets. Go to harefest.com/tickets. And joining us right now is the man behind Harefest, Jason Feldman. Jason, what year is this? How many years you been doing this now?
This is year number 12, you guys. Year
Gosh.
12. It would be 15 if we didn't have the 2 COVID years off, but year 12, we made
right.
it this far.
This is an important story, but for those who don't know, what's the origin of Harefest? How did it come to be? And now you're 12 years deep. What's up with that?
So Joan Monin, who owns the Wild Hair Saloon, and this is Harefest, H-A-R-E, so it's a play on words where it started at the Wild Hair Saloon, and she wanted my Journey tribute band, Stone and Love, to come play at her restaurant. The problem was we were both too expensive and had too big of a draw at this point to fit into the restaurant, which was pretty small inside. So rather than passing on the idea, we thought, hey, let's go do something outside in the back, and so we did.
That big vacant lot in back.
Well,
right?
actually, just in the parking lot. We didn't even go to the grass yet until the
Whoa,
second
really?
year. Yeah. And so about 600 people showed up for that first year. And afterwards, Joan and I were looking at each other going, gosh, we really ought to do this again. And honestly, it was just organic after that. Just went from 600 to 1,200 to 1,800, and it just kind of kept growing. And now we have over 10,000 people coming for the 3 days.
Dude, that must have been a rush to see 600 people show up for that first gig.
It was especially at the time, because I'd never really done anything that size. So it was super exciting. But I think even more than that was the response of the people who came, the energy and the feeling of nostalgia and like, oh man, I get to see this music live again. And I think that was really what was the most palpable thing.
Dwight and I were talking about this. I'm a huge fan of cover bands, and I'm a huge fan of different groups doing covers of different songs. I love going through YouTube to see what type of versions and the spin that they put on that. Do you enjoy that type of stuff too?
I love it. And of course, that's one of the cool things about YouTube is that, there's a guy who played an entire Rush album by himself, all the instruments and put it online. I'm
That's
just
insanity.
going, this would never happen, when I was a kid. No one even know how to do that or know how to find the person who could do it. So yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And I think the important part too is not just the music, but to get that many people together for a community event, man, especially this time of year when the weather's nice out here in the Northwest.
Yeah, it is as much about the culture as it is about the music. The gathering, the coming together. There used to be music festival culture, of course, has evolved over the years, but it's always been a place where people can gather around, a common ground of music that they love. And in this day and age, when there's a lot of polarizing, topics out there and such, it's really nice for everybody just to be able to forget about all that and just, get out and in the trees and the forest and the field and just, have a good time together, listening to music and camping out overnight.
I'll tell you what, that kind of crowd, we're not used to that out in Canby. I'll tell you that. And now you guys are at the fairgrounds, right?
Yeah, we take we use almost every square inch of the Clackamas County Fairgrounds out there. Probably close to 3,000 people spending the night this year, about a quarter to a third of the crowd. It's an amazing facility. Nice to have running water and actual buildings for bathrooms and the cool thing is that both the city of Canby, the chamber, the fairgrounds, everyone's just been super accommodating. They get it. And they know what we're trying to do out there, and they're super supportive.
Aside from Harefest, how many gigs do most of these cover bands do each year?
It depends. So some of the bands like Queen Nation, who is I think based in L.A., or the Red Hot Chili Peppers, they're touring bands. They play every
Red Hot Chili
right.
Peppers.
I'm so used to that name that when I try to say Red Hot Chili Peppers, Red Hot Chili Peppers is what comes out of my mouth now. But they're incredible, and so they play every weekend. So you got to figure, 100-something gigs a year for some of these touring bands. And then you got bands like my own, like Stone and Love Journey Tribute, where it's more seasonal. So we might play 20 shows a year, but 15 of those come in June, July, August. So it really depends. You kind of have you got the weekend warrior types who might be doing a dozen shows a year kind of thing, or and then you've got the ones who do it for a living and pretty much do it every weekend.
Boy, I think it might have been your band. I shared a story yesterday. My friend Alex, on his 50th birthday, he held a big event in downtown Tacoma where it was Journey followed by Queen, 2 tribute bands. Was that your band?
It wasn't our band. It makes me wonder who it was because I do work with another fantastic Journey tribute up called the Infinity Project.
It might have been the Infinity Project.
Up in and we actually it's kind of funny because people are like, "You're working with another Journey tribute band. You're in a Journey tribute band," but I'm like, "Dude, it's Journey. Are you kidding me? We can have more than one Journey tribute band. It's Journey, you know."
Yeah.
So those guys are fantastic. We actually bring them down to Portland quite a bit.
Why'd you choose Journey?
That was a little bit of an accident. So I'm in an 80s tribute band called Radical Revolution. It used to be called The Breakfast Club, and we were recording our demo at Kevin Hahn's studio. Kevin Hahn owns Opal Studio in Southeast Portland. And it was like between takes, and we were recording our demo, and someone was playing a Journey song on guitar, and he just starts singing. And everybody stops. And we're like, dude, this guy sounds like Steve Perry. What's going on? And so after, a little joking around and stuff, we're like, hey, we should just learn a few songs, right? So I still have it at home. Actually, I have the poster. We debuted at the Thirsty Lion when they were still doing live music downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the Breakfast Club with special guest Stone in Love. We were kidding. It was like tongue in cheek. And we did 5 songs, and the place went nuts, and it was packed. And so our 4th show, fast forward. Our second show, we set a record crowd at the Lotus before it closed. And then our 3rd show was a Brew Crew party, actually, when those were happening at the Refectory. Dan Bozick discovered us. And then our 4th show, we sold out the Aladdin Theater, and we've never looked back. Yeah, it's
my last trip to Lotus, I had my fake ID taken away. I was really bummed out. That was a cool spot back in the day.
Yeah, it was a cool spot back in the day, yeah. All those 80s dance parties and stuff when we were growing up. That was a cool spot.
All right, so give us a breakdown of what are some of the different things, like if people go out to Harefest, like how's the ground set up? What are some of the different things going on? Like what can people check out when they're there?
Totally. Well, it's a 3-day event. So it starts on Thursday night at 7. So we have 3 bands on Thursday. I actually play with my band. I have another band. You actually would love this one. It's the Holland Bros. So we do Hall & Oates and Doobie Brothers, right?
You can't go wrong with that.
Cannot go wrong. And so we got that Foreigner and then our Aussie tribute. And so that takes place on Thursday night. And then on Friday, the programming starts at 11 a.m. with the Creedence Clearwater Revival guys. And it goes all the way till 12:15 a.m. Every band plays for an hour. And then the next day on Saturday, it starts at 9 a.m. with the Bon Jovi breakfast with Steel Horse Bon Jovi tribute, playing a little trio set. And it goes, again, from 9 a.m. all the way nonstop to almost 1 a.m. that day. Every night, the very final set is accompanied by a laser show by a company called Laser Gator that comes down from
Laser Gator
from
Sweet
Seattle. And so we light that thing up. So Ozzy on Thursday, Red Hot Chili Peppers on Friday, and then Best of Both Worlds, which is the Van Halen tribute with 2 singers. They got a Sammy and they got a David. That's the name Best of Both Worlds. And it's incredible. And so it's so cool because they basically just take turns every few songs. They got all the witty banter. It's like, what would have happened? And that's the cool thing about tribute bands. You can do things that just can't happen in real life, right? You would never have like Fleetwood Mac and the Beastie Boys in the same. I mean, you don't even have the Beastie Boys anymore. Half these bands don't even exist. And so it allows you to create these collaborations and combinations that can't exist in reality, but you would have loved to see them,
Van Halen and Van Hagar together.
Yep.
The way it should be.
The way it should be. Yeah, it would have been awesome. And it actually just goes to show how compelling that package would have been had they actually done it in real life. It's really too bad that they couldn't get along,
I think the other aspect about the cover bands that I like is, for someone like you get a chance to play the music over and over and over again. And as time goes on, you perfect it.
Yep.
I mean, to the best of your abilities. So what you're putting out there is super legit. And I love that aspect of it.
There are 2 things about it that end up being interesting, too. One of them is that tribute bands, I talk about this a lot, have an interesting burden that the real band doesn't have. When someone goes to see the real band, like let's say I want to go see Journey at the amphitheater, right? Let's say they do a slow, broken-down version of Any Way You Want It, acoustic. Oh, I walk out of there going, man, they play this really cool version of the song, right? Tribute band does that. I'm like, what? That doesn't sound like the song, right?
Yeah.
So tribute bands have to play album perfect. Well, I got to tell you, especially in the 80s, not so much the 70s, but in the 80s, that music was not designed to be played live.
Yeah.
There was an unspoken competition among singers. Who can sing the highest? Who can make the most difficult part? And that's why they wear out their singers from the 80s. So that's one thing that's interesting about. The other thing that's interesting about is you learn the songs, then you play them over and over again. And over time, you start to change them because you don't realize it. So it's fascinating when you hear the song in the supermarket come on, you're like, wait a minute, I don't play it like that anymore. So you almost sometimes you have to like go back to them after a number of years when they've atrophied and learn them again.
You know, Jason, Chad and I have been talking about a documentary we've seen recently called The Wrecking Crew about that group of session musicians who played the instrumentals for so many of these groups.
They played everything.
And it's like you're trying to match up. Those groups
Yep.
couldn't even do those songs.
No.
That's what's amazing. And people show up expecting the tribute band to get it exactly like the album version that they hear all the time.
It's
right?
really, really a fascinating dynamic, and I'm even to this day I'm still blown away at how like authentic some of these bands are. I mean, Queen Nation is the one that comes to mind. They're the #1 touring Queen tribute in the United States.
Wow.
They're a big deal. And you watching this and you just like, is this Freddie? Is this Queen? I mean, the harmonies and there's no tracks. They're just like, album perfect. And it's like, you just have to be an incredible musician to be able to pull those kinds of things off.
We're talking with Jason Ferman, the man behind Harefest, which is coming out in Canby, July 18th to the 20th. You can get tickets. Go to harefest.com/tickets. What are some of with the technology now, how much does it help in terms of being able to reproduce the songs that you make?
I mean, probably one of the coolest things is that if you want to get the actual like tones, like the guitar tones, for example, because every band has a signature sound, and it would be pretty expensive to have to go buy an amp for every band. And so, a lot of that can be done now with a unit that fits in a briefcase, you know what I mean? And while purists will say, hey, that's not an amp, it's like, dude, some of the greatest guitar players in the world are playing those amp modelers. And so that's, enabled us to be able to create sounds a lot more efficiently. And the other one is the use of in-ear monitors so that you don't have to use monitor wedges where they're making a lot of noise on stage. Yeah. And so it's just made a situation where musicians can hear themselves a lot more easily. This is true of all music, not just tribute bands, but it's definitely made the live music environment a lot, more comfortable for musicians playing over the years.
You're using Ultimate Ears?
Actually, yes, we do use Ultimate Ears.
Yeah.
My bands do, and of course, there's also 64 Audio. But we use Ultimate Ears, and I love them. We've been on them for probably 15 years now. Right when they came out, they sponsored us. We got it used to be endorsed, so we got them for free, which is kind of cool.
Wow. So do you guys use any tracks or anything like that, or is it 100% you guys?
Well, in our bands, we don't use tracks. Some bands have to use tracks because there's just no way to do it otherwise, because the real bands use tracks.
Yeah.
So most of that is driven by, did the actual band use tracks? Or in some cases, the actual band would come out, but they'd also bring like an extra section of musicians. I mean, even a band like Journey is a great example where they've got more than the 5 guys. They've got like a couple of keyboard players now that play too, just to fill out the sound and stuff because it's more organic that way. But I'm not biased against tracks either because I think if you use them right, and again, you want the tracks to be well crafted. It's just like anything else. If they don't sound right, they don't sound right. But my bands don't use them, but that's just only because our music doesn't demand it.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess if it demands it and you can use it, it can enhance the performance and the experience for the people going to the show too.
Yep. And also too, like a lot of it depends on the original recording, because if there's a sound in there, it's funny. We're doing Private Eyes in our Hall Bros, right? And it's got this really weird like electric drums, kind of the 80s kind of sound, and it's like, I don't have that right now, but it sure would be a lot cooler if I did. So, I'm contemplating like, well, do I want to get into some of the electronics just to recreate those sounds? Or, so it's once you have a track going, the upside is it sounds great, fills things out. The downside is you have no flexibility to change the form of the song. You want to take a solo, you want to break it down for the audience, whatever, you can't do it. And so I don't have like an artistic criticism for it, but it is. You are locked into the song form once you have a track.
That's interesting because back when Private Eyes was made, that's back when, drum machines first hit the scene.
The Linn drums.
Yeah, and they were still trying to figure out how to utilize them, how they best would suit music and so forth. That was some groundbreaking stuff back then.
Well, and they were triggering sounds too. So going back to a guy named Mutt Lange, for example, he's famous for the Def Leppard sound and that big fat snare that you hear on those things. It sounds kind of artificial. He also was the one, he married Shania Twain and created that sound and sort of brought 80s pop. And he's the one who's kind of responsible for 90s and 2000s country sounding like 80s pop because it literally is the same guy. And so, getting those sounds right is, kind of key to the sound as well.
I think it was In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. When he cut the demo, he did it in some weird room at the studio with like bricks and everything.
Mm-hmm.
and it created this weird sound that's ended up sounding great.
Yep.
And the only place they could replicate it or reproduce it was in that room. So they went with the original, track that he made.
Yep.
The sample track. And I just think that's amazing how you stumble upon great sounds sometimes that you can only reproduce in that one spot.
Led Zeppelin was really one of the first bands that was really good at that. You hear these stories about how they had the reverb chambers in the other room.
Yeah.
And they're always, and the cool thing about, and again, kind of going back to the nostalgia of all this is that nowadays when you're writing music, I'm not one of these guys who's down on modern music. There's great music in every era. It's different how you find it, but there's still great music. And I'm not, it's not like today is worse or better. It's just different, right? But back then there was a lot of exploration because they didn't have the technology. And so it is kind of cool to see, to go back and play some of this material that was, where a lot of these, now electronic ideas started as acoustic ideas.
Well, my hope is with Harefest and the tribute bands that you can help connect a younger generation out there to some of the great rock and roll that, like people like my daughter didn't grow up with, right? But all of a sudden, because of YouTube or they go to the Harefest, they get connected with music from that day and they get inspired by it.
It's kind of funny because our audience simultaneously gets older and younger at the same time, right?
Sure.
Because we talked about this a little bit earlier before we got on air that, you have folks who, maybe 15 years ago when they would come to the festival or 12 years ago to the first one, their kids were very young. And this was like, hey, my kids are old enough to stay with the babysitter. I'm going to go have some fun again. You know what I mean? Now it's like my kids are now 21 and they're young adults, and now they can come out and enjoy the music that they listened to with me when I was raising them. So it's kind of interesting to see the next generation come up, and definitely gives you hope when you see people rocking out to Boston and Styx and some of that classic stuff.
What were some of your early as a youngster? Like what type of music were you into? What was inspiring to you at a younger age?
I was really big into Rush, which is still my favorite band.
Awesome.
I remember when my brother came home with Back in Black. And actually, the funny thing is, the first album that I learned how to play drums to didn't even have actual drums on it. It was when I was in 7th grade. It was Howard Jones' Dream into Action. But it's an amazing album, and the drum parts are actually really well written. They're just not real drums. So those are some of them. Later on, I liked Seal and... but I was more of a classic rock guy growing up, so I was into Rush and Zeppelin and the like.
Howard Jones was just recently on Live from Daryl's House, and he's a fascinating individual. Very talented songwriter and can play multiple instruments. I like him a lot.
Great storyteller as well. I always recommend if people get a chance to see his solo show, which I saw him at the Aladdin a while back when he came, and it was just him and the piano and stories and songs, and it was incredible. That guy's legit.
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah. Very cool.
Gosh,
yeah.
It was good. Yeah.
It was really
good. That
good.
was one I missed. I'm like, dang it.
It was good. Yeah. But he's still touring, so definitely, if he comes back again, he'll either play at Rev Hall or he'll play at the Aladdin, I'm sure.
All right. Harefest.com is the website. So is that the best place to get tickets, harefest.com?
Absolutely. It's the clearinghouse for all things Harefest. And, from there you can get the schedule and the overnight situation. The FAQ is really good for people who haven't been to a festival before because it's just a much larger scale than just going to a concert at a standard concert venue in terms of what you can bring and what's available there and that kind of stuff.
Do you have a song that you think is a masterpiece, like one song that you kind of look at and be like, wow? I know it's a difficult question.
Yeah. I mean, this is cliche, but since we're talking about Queen, I mean, it's hard to go away from Bohemian Rhapsody just because of you're like, how do humans write this song? You know what I mean? And then
Dwight and I talk about that all the time. It's like, how do you come up with this?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a professionally trained musician. This is what I studied in school, and I cannot wrap my head around coming up with something like that. I mean, I'm just like, I got to learn how to play these things after they were written. They actually wrote the parts. So it's like, yeah, that I think, I mean, you could probably pick a number of Queen songs, but that's an awfully good song. Yeah,
well,
for sure.
We're excited for you, man. Jason Ferman, Harefest. Go to harefest.com. It's coming up in Canby, July 18th to the 20th. Harefest.com/tickets. What else do you want to get out to the masses, Jay?
Well, I just be good out there, man. Have some fun this summer, whatever you do. And I always want to tell people, whether you come to Harefest or not, this is the time to support live music. We're in a transitional time in society. And so I would say whether it's Harefest or whether it's original bands or cover bands or whatever, one of the best things you can do to go have a great time is get outside this summer, see a summer concert, go to a music venue and catch one of the bands coming through town. And, whatever your thing is, I encourage you to go enjoy some music.
All right. We'll come back on the Rip City Drive. And when we do, we'll find out from the Godfather what he's hearing about Cooper Flagg around the NBA. Harefest.com is the website. Go to harefest.com/tickets to get your tickets July 18th to the 20th in Canby. Jason Ferman, the man behind the event here in studio. Jason, thank you, dude. That was awesome.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, it's still freezing booty in the studio, Godfather. It's unbelievable to me. Shacker, what is it, like 64 degrees in the control room right now?
Yeah, when I drove home yesterday, no AC. I had to warm up the cold bones.
Oh, Fellman, I just walked him out.
Yeah.
He said on his way over here, his air conditioner, his car went out.
Oh, not a time for that.
Have fun sweating. There's nothing worse than being in your rig and feeling the beads of sweat on your upper back roll down your lower back. It's the worst. When I first got air conditioning in my vehicle, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Why are you sitting so far away now? You're all jacked up over there.
No, he moved my chair. That's easy answer to that.
All right, what are you hearing around the league about Cooper Flagg? All the guys you talked to, have you heard anything negative about Cooper Flagg? Anything?
No, not at all. Nobody's saying anything negative. The only, all you hear is that cautionary tale. Well, look, he's still got a year at Duke. Let's see what happens there. Let's see if he fits in okay, how dominant he is, how he fits into a team concept, blah, blah, blah. He's young. He's just 17 years old.
Yeah, Duke's going to be an issue after he just tore up the NBA guys yesterday.
Yeah, I know. But that's what I mean. What can you say?
He's going to force us to watch regular season college basketball is what he's going to do.
Gosh, that's really a sacrifice there. Goodness sakes, Chad.
Which would you rather watch?
I don't know about
Serious
that.
question. WNBA or regular season college hoop?
Probably regular season college hoops. Yeah. WNBA is still not up to par for me. Too many missed shots.
But nothing
many
bad about
turnovers.
Cooper Flagg. So
No. What? I mean, really, you could pick
I
his
don't know,
game
but
apart.
some of these scouts are like,
Yeah, I know.
I looked at his tape. And
But it usually comes from watching somebody. By the end of his college season, there'll be things. Because that's what happens with scouts. The longer they watch somebody, the more time it gives them to pick them apart. You see it in all sports, really. If you and that's what happens when you get a guy on your team. You trade for a guy, you think, this guy's going to be great.
Oh, so
2
by the
years
time
later-
next year rolls around, right before the draft, we'll start to hear a bunch of nonsense
Yeah.
about Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, I've seen it in the NBA for years. You make this big trade, then 2 years later, well, he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that, and I don't know. Familiarity breeds contempt.
I know. I heard the same stuff about Kobe for years. Well, he shoots a little bit too much and sometimes doesn't look to involve his teammates. Yeah, I think I'd still take Kobe. Thanks.
Yeah,
I guess
both
people
those
nitpick
things were
like that.
true, but
Yeah, they were true,
yeah,
but
you take them anyway.
yeah, no one's perfect.
No, I think the good outweighs the bad. That's what you have to watch for.
Yeah, there's no question about it. So,
It's cold in here, man.
no, it is.
Oh God.
Like I came in from the outside, I walked in here, I was like, ooh. But I refused to bring a jacket. I reached a point a couple of weeks ago where I'm like, I'm not doing it, man. It's summertime. I'm not bringing a jacket into the studio. It's just wrong.
I left
You're
mine.
wearing a winter giddy up right now.
No, it's just a long sleeve polo shirt. That's what it is.
Yeah, but it's thick. You should not be wearing a long sleeve anything on a day like today when it's 100 degrees outside.
Yeah,
That's
but
my
I'm-
whole point.
But I'm freezing, okay? We might as well be in the show.
But that's my point. Would you wear that long sleeve shirt if you weren't coming into the cold studio?
I'd be wearing a T-shirt like you wear.
That's what
I'd
I'm
be
talking
wearing.
about.
But it's brutal.
It's getting
And here, Rich was here. I should have said something. Rich.
yeah, because that's what the boss wants to hear.
Exactly. That's what I figured. Yeah, go right to the top with it.
I've
In
learned
fact,
over time.
get the CEO on the phone. This is
I have other ways of getting the CEO on the phone. It doesn't involve the air conditioning system.
yes.
I've
It's
got
funny
my
how
ways.
You can certainly get their attention when you do something wrong, right?
That's my angle. That's how I operate. No one cares when you're complaining about a air conditioning unit, but if you do something wrong, you can
you
get
mess
interest
up.
in a hurry.
Mhm.
That's pretty much how I've operated my whole life. Couldn't get my parents' attention until, call from the school. Doing a lot of dumb things. I did a lot of dumb things, Godfather. It's amazing that one, my parents didn't kill me, or two, that I didn't kill myself.
Speaking of your parents, man, your dad he went with Isaac to the beach. That's cool. I saw it all on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Isaac
everything.
posted all that.
Isaac is a over-poster on social media.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it. Tell him I enjoyed it. It looked like he had a ball with Grandpa, and Jim Doing is he's a good Gramps.
Yeah, he's
I
a
can
good
tell
Gramps.
that.
Yeah, because this is how this went down. Isaac knows, my son, anywhere you want to go outside, I'm not driving you to Arizona as much as you want me to. I'm not driving to Florida or Arizona. I'm not doing that. It's absurd. But within reason, any road trip you want to go on, he knows how it works. Give me notice and give me the dates, and we'll make it happen. Well, he sprung this idea of a July 4th trip last second, like, hey, I want to go up to Long Beach and take the drive up through Astoria and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work for me. And so he was bitter. He got ticked off at me because I wouldn't drop what I had going on and launch him up to Long Beach. I said, because I gave him other options. I said, well, how about this day, or this day? 3 other days within the week.
Yeah.
None of those worked for him. Well, he ended up pressuring Grandpa, and Grandpa, he knows, will always say yes. And sure enough, he kept on him. And finally, Grandpa's like, well, I've decided I'm going to take him. I'm like, of course you did. And so next thing you know, they're on a trip. And my dad, the reason why Isaac drives him crazy is my dad's one of those guys where he's really nice and he's an awesome human being, but he's quite comfortable going into an establishment and not speaking to anyone, enjoying his meal, and then leaving. Isaac will talk to everyone, strangers. He eavesdrops.
Yeah.
He violates so many different rules all in one setting. But he ended up talking to everyone in the restaurant, and my dad he's like, his personality is the exact opposite of mine.
I saw his favorite restaurant in Astoria. Now you think, wow, he's going to get some seafood down there.
No.
Mexican restaurants.
El Tapatio.
Yeah, that's his favorite. And good for you, Isaac. I'm a big fan of Mexican food myself. Nice
He gets the same thing every time we go there, 6 tacos. And they're not small tacos. They're
took a picture of them.
Yeah, he's pretty happy about that. But yeah, Grandpa's he's a good grandpa.
He's got a Jeep, huh?
Yep.
That's a pretty cool looking Jeep.
They took the Jeep. Isaac basically had everything lined up. He got everything he could have possibly wanted out of the trip.
Well, good.
So there you go. But that's what grandpas are supposed to do.
It
but
is.
But being older now I know how it went down when I was younger, because I would always show up at Nana and Papa's house. And I know there had to be times where my Papa was like, gosh, I cannot believe he showed up again today. But he never showed it. He just would acquiesce, and then next thing you know, I'm riding lawnmower around the yard, even though we're not mowing anything, or we're going fishing. Most of the things we did, he probably didn't want to do, but he did it anyways.
That's what grandparents do, though. You know, that's what they're there for.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. Dwight and Chad with you. Hope you're enjoying this fabulous Tuesday. When we come back, we have a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops Ticket Tuesday here on the Rip City Drive. Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's now 5 o'clock. Your Trailblazers will kick off their Summer League action Saturday. They're going to meet the Spurs. That tip-off is at 6. It's on ESPN2. Chris Paul signed a one-year deal with the Spurs, says playing time trumped his desire to chase a championship. The Mariners open up a set tonight against the Padres down in San Diego. First pitch at 6:40. Logan Gilbert is going to take the mound for Seattle. Mariners 2 games up on Houston in the AL West as they open up action today. Arch Manning has changed his mind. He will now be a part of the EA Sports College Football game, College Football 25. And one other note, Tyler Glass now has been put back on the 15-day IL with back tightness. Coming up next on the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, we will give away a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops on Hops Ticket Tuesday. I certainly don't mind hearing Sting's voice.
Oh, man. This is a great song, too. Great song.
He's a super cool dude.
Man, this song's lasted a long time. Still as good as it was when we put it out.
This is a timeless classic.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen his sit-down interview with Rick Beato, I would encourage you to check out Beato's YouTube page. That guy's a freak, but he had a good sit-down with Sting. Yeah, Sting's on the list. He's in my top 5. Had a man crush on him for a long time.
Yeah.
Super cool. I saw him in concert here in Portland. I forgot the year, but it was at the Schnitz. It was probably around 2010 or somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, but it wasn't a rock concert. He had the orchestra behind him. And so he was terrific, and his voice sounded great, but it was just a different type of show.
Mm-hmm.
So I've yet to see the Police or Sting doing a regular, giddy up with the guitars and all that stuff.
Weren't you with me in Dallas when we saw him?
No.
Weren't you on that?
No, you went to Dallas and saw Sting down there?
No. I was there for the national championship game, the football game.
Well, I was at the championship game.
But they had a free concert, Sting, for free. You just walked right in and sat right down front.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. It was for the media.
No. No one ever told me about that.
You didn't do that.
I mean, I did everything else down there that week.
Yeah.
That was an incredible week. That's one of my favorite memories on radio was that entire week because John Lund and John Lund is one of my radio heroes, and he was a great friend and very sad to see him leave. But we went down the week before. And so we got there early, and we were there the entire week broadcasting leading up to the big event. And the cool part was, this is genius, but I finally convinced Jay Allen. I was like, Jay, I need you to do me a favor. And I know that you don't like to go against the book. I said, you need to get a press pass for my boy Steve. And he can be my radio confidant to follow me around and do whatever I need him to do.
Yeah.
And so for some reason, Jay, unlike most of the other occasions in the past, he put in a request for Steve Lehman, and my boy got a press pass. So Steve was with me everywhere that I went.
Wow.
So media day, and we were there when, they had to pull Nick Aliotti out of media day because he was talking too much junk, and Chip wanted him to shut up. That was amazing. We went to the Tilted Kilt together when Brent Musburger and Kirk Herbstreit were there, and we did everything. I mean, the pep rally day, I've done some cool radio broadcasts, but we're up on a stage out there in Scottsdale for the pep rally before the game. This is like on Saturday. And so we get out there in the morning surrounded by Duck fans. And then right before our broadcast was over, we look up and we see this sea of like blue and orange. The Auburn fans from all directions coming in to take over their portion of the pep rally. It was like a sea of humanity. Never seen anything like it. That was truly amazing. And then earlier in the week, perfect timing, but the Lakers were in town playing the Suns. And we went to the game. So we got tickets to go see Kobe.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about. I'm talking about Dallas, the one game in Dallas.
Well, that wasn't the championship game. That was the LSU Oregon game to open up the season. I was down there for that one too.
Yeah, I guess that was that. Yeah, I guess it was.
They also played a championship game. I think it was in Dallas against Ohio State.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
Well, I wasn't there for that
Oh,
one. I
you
was down in
weren't.
the Bay Area.
Yeah. That one was great because on Friday night, American Airlines Arena, and they just said, any media that wants to go, just come be our guest.
Oh.
They ran a bus over. They picked us up at the hotel, took us over there in a bus. And
Was this the
we just
Police or
walked in.
Sting?
No, it was Sting. Yeah.
Wait a second. You want me to go to a Sting concert for free? I'm in.
Yeah, I saw him once here, too. I've seen him twice, and I never disappointed in him. He puts on a great show.
Yeah, I love the guy. He's amazing. That was really cool. I did see now when I went down for the Rose Bowl, and you were there at the first meeting against Ohio State back in the 2009, and they went down for the Ohio State game that Ohio State won. You, me, and Gavin early in the morning heading over to Fox Sports Radio to do some pregame show.
Yes. Well,
I can't even
we
believe.
didn't we do our morning show from there a couple of different days, didn't we?
Well,
it seems like we did.
No, we did.
Yeah.
But the morning of the game, I don't even know how I survived that night. I got to be honest with you. We went out to dinner with you because Gavin, he how do I say this?
Yeah.
Back in the day, Gavin could run at a different octane level than I could.
Yeah. Well,
I've never been one to really get after it, right?
Yeah.
And Gavin's like, dude, I want you to come out. You can hang and stuff like that. So it was New Year's Eve. And what's up with you, girl? They were playing and putting on a show with the Duck song at some place in Hollywood. And, of course, our hotel was the Omni down in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started out with you. We went to, I think it was Longhorn Steakhouse down there at the LA Live. So we went to go get a steak. We went to eat with you. So we got dinner. And then after that, we parted ways, and I went with Gavin. And all I know is I showed up to this party in Hollywood, and Gavin's like, here, you like wine. Don't you take this? And before you know it, the room was spinning, and I was hammered, absolutely hammered.
Mm.
And I just remember that song coming on, and then I was like, I got to get some air. So I stumbled out on the street. And not one of my finer moments, but I'm sitting at some Popeye's Chicken in Hollywood eating chicken fingers because I was hungry with some guy that was like from the streets. And next thing I remember, I woke up in the hotel room. I don't even know how I got back to the hotel.
I remember hearing the story the next day at the game.
Yeah. So Gavin and I get up to do the pregame show for the game, which was in the morning to kick off our Oregon coverage. And it was like one of the greatest shows we've ever done. I was still half drunk. That's all I remember. I should have died. I have no idea how I survived that night.
Hmm.
That was probably the last time I was intoxicated.
Yeah, because I've never seen you.
Wild night.
Yeah.
Wild night, but that's what I get for trying to run with Gavin, who is much more legendary than I am. But anyways, that's just beside the point. So we do the show, and we go back to the hotel, and we had to take the bus through Pasadena down for the media drop off.
Yeah.
Well, by then the hangover was settling in. And of course, I didn't get a chance to sleep much. So I popped some Advil, and I'm like, oh, the sun was out, and it was hot. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to die. But I get down there, and you know who made me happy? I was like, what's that music? I know that. Well, over there at the College Football Live, it was Cheap Trick. I'm like, what was that, Cheap Trick? So I walk over there, and I take in the free show before I made my way up to the media box. Cheap Trick was playing for free. Not Sting, but Cheap Trick's pretty awesome, and I got to see them for free. And they helped me get through the sickness that I was experiencing from the shenanigans that went on the night before.
It's fun to watch a game at the Rose Bowl from the press box. I really enjoy that.
The sunset, I got some great pictures that I saved.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
But getting there is not half the fun, I will tell you that.
It was great, though. I sat next to Anthony Q. Newman. We just happened to be put next to each other. And sitting next to a guy who used to play the game when his team's not doing exactly what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Like, I thought he was going to Hulk out right there in the booth. It was amazing. But that was a beautiful setting. But then I would say this, after going to the Rose Bowl and seeing it, like, the pageantry, the whole setup and stuff was nice, but the stadium's a dump. It's a dump. The Rose Bowl is old and outdated. I'll take a brand new facility over that all day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So there you go. That's my...
It's a nice press box, though. Big, real big, huge press box.
Yeah, it's massive,
Mhm.
gigantic. And of course, the old school elevator, it takes like 5 hours to get up to the top.
Yeah,
Took forever.
that's true.
So that's what I remember about that. But that was a good time. But the title trip down in Arizona was phenomenal. And the Auburn Tigers were practicing at some community college.
Yeah, they were.
So I went out there for the first time early in the week, and I remember seeing Cam Newton in person. I'm like, whoa, he was like an Adonis.
Yeah, I remember interviewing him, and he was big.
Our former producer, Eric Ringering, he shares a great story, but he went to the Laker game too to go see Kobe. And he was there. That's when he was still in school, and he was on the Oregon Ducks football staff as, I don't know, a graduate or
Yeah, he was an
intern or whatever he was doing.
intern, I think.
So
yeah.
he's in the arena there for the game, and he's up against the wall just in the concourse, and all of a sudden he sees this stream of Auburn football players coming out of the restroom and making their way down the concourse. And again, he said it was like a sea of gigantic humans. And he said that one of the Auburn football players, he saw the look that Eric had in his face, probably jaw dropped, like, whoa, these guys are massive. And he said this player looked over at him and smiled and said, "We big, ain't we?" Because they knew the deal, man, size. SEC, baby.
Ducks could have won that game, though.
They could have.
Yeah. I mean, they came close given the circumstances and who they were.
Darren Thomas played well.
Oh, yeah.
They just decided that one guy was enough to block Nick Fairley, and that proved to be fatal.
Yeah, it hurt him. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
I'm not a coach. You might want to put two guys on that guy because he's physically wrecking your football team right now. Like, some guys are just freaks.
Yeah.
That was a good one. That was fun. That was good times.
It was a good game, really. Unlike the Ohio State.
Well, I wasn't there for the Ohio State game. I
That
watched it
was a
on TV.
debacle.
Who was the running back? Ezekiel Elliott went wild.
Hmm.
Yeah. But it's the same thing,
The
just bigger,
quarterback
stronger
had
athletes.
his all-time greatest performance,
But
too.
but let those games paint what Lanning is doing now, right? What is he doing? We need bigger, stronger athletes to be able to compete with those type of teams, and
Yeah,
that's what they're doing.
He's getting those guys.
And then Phil Knight's saying, "What do you need to support having those type of players on the team?" Well, we need money, Phil. No problem.
How much
Unlimited
do you need?
supply of my cash.
Yeah.
Here's my checkbook. Whatever you need, make it happen. Because Phil wants a title. It's pretty wild.
Well, he deserves one. He's paid the bill on that already.
Oh, and then some. And I'm just going to give you $1 billion. Can you give me a championship? We'll give you our best. It's amazing how much cash.
Yeah.
All right, we have a 4-pack of tickets for the Hillsboro Hops. It is Hops Ticket Tuesday. And I think we can do the first caller through. We'll make it easy on you. This is for the Hops and Dust Devils coming up Sunday, July 14th. First pitch at 1:05 out at Hillsboro Ballpark.
Dust Devils in town.
All right. 503-248-0620. Florence!
Here we go.
503-248-0620. Buxton! If you would like a 4-pack of tickets, call now. First caller through gets a 4-pack of tickets for the Hops. You can take in some baseball.
St. Helens.
Salem!
Staten.
Gold
Represent.
Coast! Is there a Gold Coast? There is, isn't there?
Gold Hill.
I think there's a Gold Coast, Oregon. Let me just look that up real quick. I know.
Gold Hill.
That's your Gold Coast. Oakland! I've done a football game from there before. Oh, it's Gold Beach. Gold Beach!
Gold Beach. Yeah, I should have known
I got it half right. All right, 503-248-0620. Shaka will get your information, and we're going to keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. When we come back, we'll talk about how analytics are changing practice habits in the NBA. I'm not sure if it's good or bad. We'll ask the Godfather. this? That's what I thought. All right, nice work, Shacker. A little Def Leppard for you.
Can't go wrong, really. Guitar solos from Def Leppard.
That was the first concert I ever went to.
Really?
Young Chad, yep.
Huh.
At the Memorial Coliseum. And it was hard to get past my mom, who laid down the law on certain activities when I was younger.
Yeah.
But finally, when I hit senior in high school, she allowed me to go to a concert. It didn't take long for me to figure out I needed a lot more of that in my life. Give me more concerts, please.
I think my first might have been either Paul Revere and the Raiders or the Kingsmen.
That's not bad.
No, it's a good start.
I think my dad was telling me when he was younger, he was a big fan of Three Dog Night, and he thought they were cool.
Yeah, my brother was a big fan of them.
The God Brother?
Yeah. By the way, he called me last night. He goes, I had to turn you guys off. I had to go. You know, he talks so fast. I had to go. And I had to do this. But I heard you were talking about me. You started to talk about me. I said, Bruce, honestly, I can't remember us really talking about you. Chad said he got a couple phone calls from you on Sunday, but that was about it, I think.
Yeah, my dad's down with this. Yep. I'm trying to remember to ask my dad different questions about things I really don't know that much about, because he's kind of a mysterious man because he doesn't say a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to uncover all of the secrets, and now that he's getting older. So I've been asking him music questions, different things about this and that from when he was younger. So it's kind of interesting to get details that you were unaware of prior. I like that.
Three Dog Night, huh?
Yeah. Not his favorite. He just said he was down with Three Dog Night.
How about Chicago?
Yeah, I think he likes Chicago a little bit. I think he really likes the, what's the name of that group? This is one of his favorites. You've Lost That Loving Feeling.
Righteous Brothers.
Yeah, he's totally down with them. I got him tickets for the Righteous Brothers. They were down at Spirit Mountain Casino not too long ago. He loves the Righteous Brothers. He got me hooked on Neil Diamond, big Neil Diamond fan. And it was pretty cool because back in the day, he had his 8-track player in his truck when I was younger, and he had some good 8-tracks in there. So we popped those in. And then later on, when cassettes became big, my Uncle Truman was making him mixtapes for different songs and stuff. So
from that era, I kind of like the Everly Brothers because I, for a while, played the steel guitar, and that's what they played.
And I'm totally down with them, too. Yeah, a lot of good music back then. All right, I want to talk to you about this situation in basketball, and it kind of ties into what people complain about the most with the NBA, and that is the too many threes, not enough mid-range, and the games get boring sometimes, but this is very interesting. You sent over this post to me. Check out some of these guys here and how their mid-range game, their field goal percentage, not so good in the mid-range.
Yeah.
And these are big names, too.
Yeah.
LeBron James, 32.7%.
Wow.
Wemby, 33.7%. Bam Adebayo, 34.4%. Kyle Kuzma, 34.5%. 35% for Jimmy Butler. Miles Bridges, 35%. 35% for Anthony Edwards. Giannis is 35%. Maxey and Poole, both just over 35%.
Some of the best players in the league.
Yeah, no question about it. So I guess this brings up a good point. There might be a reason for why guys aren't shooting as well from the mid-range.
Yeah.
And it's not just because they're being discouraged from doing it now, but it would make sense that, well, just like in baseball, right? The launch angle, they want guys to hit home runs now,
The
right?
money is in the home run right now.
So they're changing the way they swing the bat, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, for sure.
And that's all based on analytics.
The whole philosophy of hitting has changed where you don't mind striking out. That used to be a terrible thing to do. Now guys don't worry about striking out at all. Not a problem. As long as you hit home runs, you're good.
But what I don't understand is you just told me the other day that, like for Aaron Judge, he gets up there, he's trying to make hard contact.
Hard contact.
But why would you want to change your swing based on launch angles or whatever, just to give yourself a better chance to hit a home run?
Well, not everybody's as strong as Aaron Judge. He hits a routine fly ball and it goes 20 feet over the fence. Everybody else hits it and it's caught on the warning track. I mean, and you transfer that over to basketball. Here's the philosophy nowadays from analytics. shoot a lot of threes, make a lot of threes or not, but shoot a lot of threes, and then get to the basket and finish at the basket, either dunk the ball or be able to finish. With that in mind, what are players going to do? They're going to shoot threes like crazy. They're going to practice those endlessly, and they're going to practice their floaters in the lane, their finishes, their reverse layups, all that stuff, finishing in traffic. And I see NBA teams practice what little we get to see of it. That's what they work on. The Blazers under Terry Stotts last 20 minutes, they first shoot free throws, which I think most teams finish up shooting free throws, but then they had 3-point games where you get three guys and an assistant coach, and you go around the horn shooting threes and keep track of your makes and misses and play little games. And that's what it is nowadays. So it's not shocking, at least, that players aren't making mid-range jumpers. They're really not practicing mid-range because they really are told, kind of lay off that shot. If if you get stuck in the lane or something, go ahead. But we're not looking for the mid-range. As you remember, these teams now playing drop coverage, they're encouraging teams to take mid-range jumpers.
That's what they want.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
So the 17-foot jumper is now a thing of the past.
Pretty much, unless you're C.J. McCollum, DeMar DeRozan, another mid-range guy. There are certain guys who still go to those shots and make enough of them to where it's productive for their teams.
Well, what I don't understand is let me ask you a question. Is there still value in a mid-range player?
Yeah, if they hit enough of them. Yeah, I mean, it's all based on your percentages and how many. I don't know what it is for mid-range that you have to make it a valuable shot, but there's a percentage number that if you hit that, it's okay. It's just like hitting threes. If you can't make 33% of your threes, forget about it. I mean, that's the number for threes, to where a three counts for more than two.
If I'm a player, like I like the mid-range game. I grew up with guys that play the mid-range.
Well, yeah.
But if you're a player now and you know that there's not going to be much value placed on the mid-range game, why would you even bother working on it?
Yeah, well, they mostly don't. And you'd think that some of these guys, like you go through that list that you just went through, you'd think some of those guys are good enough shooters as is to make their share of them and not get stuck in the 30 percentile.
Well, some of these guys shoot a better percentage from three than they do in the mid-range.
Oh, yeah. That's very common now. Very common.
Like here's my point. Like we don't like the game the way it is now. We prefer the brand that we saw in the 80s, with the movement, the mid-range and all that. But if that's not the way the game's going to be played and that's not the way the team wants you to play, why would you bother working on it?
Yeah, I agree. And there was that time, there was the revolution in the NBA, and it was started, I think, by Mike D'Antoni with the idea we're going to just shoot as many threes as we can, and we'll make enough to win. And they did for the most part.
Was it that team? Was it the 7 seconds or less team that kind of started the trend?
I as near as I can tell, without like researching it or something, I'm sure there was maybe somebody. I know in college they were shooting them sooner because their line was much more makeable than the pro line. But you used to see the three just as a way of loosening up defenses, and there were a few specialists who made those enough that you shot them. But the idea was still the old idea: the closer you can get to the basket, the better shot it is. I mean, when you didn't have a three-point line, obviously you wanted to get close to the basket. Otherwise, the percentages as you went further out got tougher. Jeff Petrie was shooting what were threes. He didn't have the line, but he was shooting jumpers from that far out. Well, a lot of people in those times thought, that's a bad shot.
Well, do you think the league should move the three-point line back?
I think back or cut out the corner three is a big deal. And that's, I think, a movement that's gaining a little traction is to cut out the corner three. Have that line run out of bounds before it gets to the corner. And I think that's good because that's the easiest one. Everybody's making corner threes now. And it does change the game. If you have to get out and cover the corner three, it's really hard to cover the baseline inside and the paint.
Would it be a better game if they did that? How would teams use that then? How would teams use the 3-point line? Would they still have a guy set up in the corner for the open baseline jumper, or would they reposition? How do you think they would do that?
Fan out around the 3-point line. It would just be a tougher shot. And you'd still see that because that three is still worth more points.
But it would be easier for teams to cover the 3-point line if there wasn't a guy buried in the corner.
Absolutely. It'd be easier to cover the basket area too, I think. But would it be a better game? That's a matter of opinion because I think you and I were used to the old post-up game with the bigs being a little more dominant.
Yeah. You and I are probably the wrong people to ask.
Yeah,
right. What do the younger fans think? I mean, I grew up with post players. When I first started watching the NBA, the game was just inside out.
Well, look at that list of top guys in the draft that you read off earlier tonight. Almost all of these guys were centers. That's where the value was. You had to have a big. You had to.
And the guys that were in the NBA when I started watching, Robert Parrish, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
That's just 4. But
every team had
bigs. Jack Sikma was in the league at that time. Tree Rollins. I mean,
no, you can go on and on and on. Michael Thompson. Everybody had. You had to have, because you had to defend those bigs. Even
Mark Eaton.
Yeah, even if your big wasn't a great scorer, he had, like Mark Eaton, he had to defend those guys.
Yeah, Sam Donaldson.
Yeah, Sam Donaldson. That's a good one.
He was a big dude.
Yeah. In today's game, Sam Donaldson wouldn't have a job.
The Nuggets were the only team that were really different in the 80s in terms of offense and pace, and they didn't have a true big. Their two bigs were Danny Shays and Blair Rasmussen, who went to Oregon. But they were smaller, slender type bigs that could fit more of what Doug Moe was trying to do. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, and I you know.
But there's got to be.
I remember when the three came in from the ABA, I was so excited about it because I was a little guy playing basketball all the time. I was a little guy, so I rooted for the little guy. And it was a big edge for the little guy. But it went way further than that. And now you got 7-footers shoot threes. And it just somehow in my mind, it's like that shouldn't be happening.
But if they push the 3-point line back, and let's say they take away the corner three, obviously guys like Steph and everyone, they're going to adjust and continue to make threes at an alarming clip. But with that extra space, wouldn't it allow the offenses to space out even better? Or maybe not as much because they don't have the corner.
It would, but the percentage of makes would go down, so you might not be as serious at getting out and covering. You'd cover Steph, but there's going to be a whole lot of other guys shooting them that, hey, they're not making enough to worry about it.
And there's a lot of middle of the road guys in the NBA that if they're left open from the corner, they're going to hit the shot.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, you know.
But would it encourage more mid-range action? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, it certainly might. There would be more mid-range open, with the 3-point shots coming from further out. I think you'd get a lot more air inside the 3-point line. You wouldn't be covered as
and guys
closely.
Would be tempted to take those shots because they'd be there. The defense would give them to.
And if your 3-point percentage isn't as high, then the mid-range percentage doesn't have to be as high either to value those shots.
Yeah, it's just different. I mean, the 3-point shot was kind of it was like a dessert or some type of bonus, because teams didn't use it as a weapon.
Yeah, you'd go through games and see a team they'd attempt 4 or 5. I can remember those days. Yeah. And if you attempted 10, it was like, whoa, they shot a lot of threes. But it just had to be and I remember guys who played in the ABA, Dave Twardzik used to tell me, they're not using the 3 in the NBA like they should. We used to come down on a 3-on-2 break, and the guy on one side or the other would fan out to the 3-point line, and we would shoot a 3 in a 3-on-2 break. I thought he was crazy. What do you mean? You can get a layup out of a 3-on-2 break. He said, yeah, but 3 points is more than 2. And they had guys who could make them.
Interesting. What's fascinating, too, with the guys who can really shoot, guys like Steph or Dame or these guys, the range that they've shown.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're willing to shoot just inside the half-court line now with no problem because they figure, hey, it's an open shot. defense is going to play off me a little bit, I can take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's important to remember, though, there's not a lot of those guys. You know, you see Trey Young making them once in a while, Steph, Dame, obviously. Other than that, most of these guys, you don't want them taking that shot. You see Caitlin Clark shooting it, and you think, wow, she's making some logo threes. Well, she's shooting 33.1% from three. You know, and you can barely live with that, you know. And she'll get better, I'm sure, as she gets used to taking more of them. But that's kind of an iffy strategy right now.
Well, it'll also help when they get some better players around her, too.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you take the floor against Indiana, you're like, all right, we'll just focus all of our attention on that one person.
Sure. Yeah. No, she's not on a very good team. And she's carrying them.
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the moral of this story is there's no quick fix to the NBA's issue right now.
No. And
do you think the NBA considers it a problem?
You know, that's a great question, Chad. They would say no because it's the way it is and they don't want to say they have problems, basically. But it's like in baseball. People are saying, where have all the 300 hitters gone? Because there's not very many anymore. Nobody's hitting 300 anymore. Okay, my suggestion, if a kid if a guy hits 300 in the big leagues right now, automatic $10 million bonus. I'll tell you, you're going to see some more 300 hitters because players in every sport go where the money is. I don't blame them. Everybody does that in their job.
Of course. And if you're in baseball and you hit home runs, you're going to get paid.
That's right.
Or you can just be Aaron Judge and bat for average and home runs, too.
Yeah.
He's a freak, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's, you know.
Oh, by the way, the video of Logan Gilbert calling his family to let them know he had made the All-Star team, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a moment. You know, his mom's crying.
Yeah.
Just like immediately.
That was good. There's video of Novak Djokovic.
Were fans disrespectful? No, they weren't.
No, they weren't. Djokovic was disrespectful and a clown.
Yeah, grow up, man.
Put on the red nose, moron. All right, high fives coming up next. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, Godfather, you got any high fives you want to hand out?
Yeah, no doubt in my mind today. Harefest. Harefest gets my high five. Great
Yeah.
thing for the city of Canby.
Jason Ferman was great. Enjoyed talking music with him.
Always good guest.
Tony reached out to let me know that Def Leppard was also his first concert. That's pretty sweet. What was your first concert, Shacker?
Rollins band with a band opening for them named Tool that got booed off the stage. Tool is still here. Rollins band is gone from the world.
Did you see what I retweeted today about the Monkees? Somebody was talking about the Monkees did this concert and Jimi Hendrix opened for them and got booed off the stage because people wanted to hear the Monkees. What a classic.
Well,
Was
that's
it
just
like
a weird
90%
mix.
female crowd, possibly?
Yeah, it might have been.
That
They
is
just
a weird mix.
They couldn't wait to hear the last train to Clarksville.
I'm surprised Jimi Hendrix didn't show up and see the Monkees there and be like, I'm out. This is not
Yeah.
my gig here.
It's not my people.
These are not my people. I'm out. But that's pretty funny to look back and be like, dude, we just booed off Jimi Hendrix, one of the greatest guitar players of all time.
Yeah.
Maybe they were freaked out because he was playing a right-handed guitar with a left hand
Yeah.
and
yeah.
making it sound really good.
It does confuse people sometimes.
Gosh, that blows me away. They didn't have left-handed guitars back then, so he figured out how to play a right-handed guitar upside down
Yeah.
and created his own special sound.
He just flipped it over.
I don't think there's a music lesson class or anything you can do in college to teach you how to do that. That's just God-given natural ability.
Yeah.
I can make this work, whatever. Like, I love hearing the stories of guys the first time they heard Hendrix. Blown away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's he doing with what? That sound is something I've never heard before. That's when you know you're a unique. I think it was Eric Clapton. First time he heard him on the radio, he had to pull over on the side of the road and sit and just listen because he had never heard something like that. And Clapton's a pretty good guitar player. I love that kind of stuff.
My college roommate, he was at Monterey Jazz Festival that first time that Hendrix played there. He came back telling me all about him. I thought, well, what, huh? Finally, we got a hold of a record that he was on, and it was like, whoa, what is this?
But that's the way it is. You hear it and you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm going to give my high five to Cooper Flagg just for creating a massive buzz around the game of basketball right now.
Yeah.
People are very intrigued. And I also love the fact that he's a Larry Bird fan. And hopefully he's patterning and tailoring his game after him.
It's going to become a very, very trending topic in the city of Portland here in the next few months.
Yeah, it should be for the next 8 months straight, 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Flagg. Just remember that after every L that's put up this season. Cooper Flagg with the double G. I like it's got 2 G's on the end.
Of course, yeah.
How do you get that? I wish my name had 2 D's. Double D, I think that'd be cool. Chad D. But I never got that, but Flagg.
Just change your name. You can do whatever you want with it.
I don't want to do that. That's kind of change your name. How would I
Well,
explain
if
that
you're
one to my
just
dad?
adding a D to it, I mean, no one would even know.
Now, Shacker, you got any high fives?
Yeah, I want to give a high five to Joe Tessitore for getting a new job. Now, he's the ESPN broadcaster, does a lot of college football and boxing. Now he's going to be calling WWE matches. Working hard.
I bet they're paying him a bundle to do that.
He's worth it. He's one of the better
That's a sweet
play-by-play
gig.
broadcasters.
That's a sweet gig right there.
Yeah, but that's the only sport where you can get the script for play-by-play before you even see the match.
What are you talking about?
Well, it's just like boxing sometimes.
When they get a script, how closely?
Well, they don't get an actual script. They go, there's a guy called a producer, and he sits them down and says, okay, here's what we want to do. And then each guy has his own particular special moves he wants to get in. So they try to let each guy get his moves in. So if a guy has a favorite move that he's famous for, watch the match and you'll see he'll get his chance to get that in. But the finish is always what the producer tells him. I want you to end the match with this, and that's the way it goes.
That's pretty awesome. So it's kind of set up like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where it's like, here, fellas.
Yeah, that's
this
right.
is point A, we want to get to point C. How you guys get to that point is they have some ability to ad lib a little bit.
Yeah, they do. And then a lot of the younger guys do go over just with the other wrestler. Well, let's go from here to here. And then, whereas the old timers actually called the match in the ring. Usually the villain, the heel, would be the guy who called the match. Usually he was the more experienced guy, and he would call the match move by move. And you could see the old timers really put together better matches doing that.